Determine the values of k for which 2x squared plus 7x plus k has no real roots. So first of all, when they tell you how many roots it has, it's usually a hint that this is a discriminant question. We're probably going to need the discriminant because it tells us how many roots it has. And because it has no roots, it's also telling you that the discriminant is negative, because you can't take the square root of a negative. In other words, the b squared minus 4ac has to be less than 0. And this is creating an inequality. Well, what can we do with this inequality? Well, we know that the b value is 7, so I know that 7 squared minus 4, I know my a value is 2, and my c value, that's the one I didn't know, that's k. This has to be less than 0. So a little bit of math here. 7 times 7 is 49, minus 4 times 2 is 8k, has to be less than 0. And we want to get k by itself. So I can move the 49 over. Oops, not an equal sign. It's a less than sign. And we have to go back. When did we do inequalities? You did some inequalities in grade 10. Did you do inequalities in grade 9 as well? It's been a while, right? Inequalities, for the most part, you can solve them just like you're solving equations, except for one tiny rule. Do you remember the tiny rule? The tiny rule is, yes, we got some hands up. What happens?
When you divide or multiply by a negative, you have to switch.
Yes. When you multiply or divide, adding and subtracting doesn't matter, but if you multiply or divide by a negative, you switch or flip the inequality. So at this next stage, I would need to, in order to get k by itself, I would need to divide by negative 8. But because I run into this green rule, I'm dividing by a negative instead of a less than sign. It all of a sudden changes to a greater than sign. Of course, you could simplify this. Negative over negative is positive. So the k values have to be bigger than 49 over 8. Can someone tell me a nice number that is bigger than 49 over 8?
2.
2? No, I don't think 2 is big enough. 8? 8 would be big enough, right? 7,000 would be big enough. There's lots of numbers that would be big enough. Okay? Because in part B, it says, use one value of k, right? Anything bigger than this, so we, in B, someone said, choose k is equal to 8. If k is equal to 8, then my equation would have been 2x squared plus 7x plus 8 equals 0 has no solutions. Is that true? Figure out what the discriminant would be. B squared minus 4 times A times C. Do you get a negative? I think you do. Right? If I check, right, do a quick check. B squared minus 4 times A times C, what's that equal to? 49 minus 64 Negative 15 is perfect. No solutions. And by checking, you also are sort of checking that your work above was right. Because if you would have forgot to switch the inequality sign, something less than 49 over 8, you might have picked 1 or 2. And if you check it, you're like, oh, wait a minute, it actually works. Where did I make my mistake? So you will get these questions where they tell you, determine the value of k that has 0 roots, or has 1 root, or 2 roots. And then you know something about the discriminant. And that becomes the thing that helps you solve for k. So sometimes you'll put an equal sign here. If it said 1 root, you'd say it has to equal 0. If it said 2 roots, then it would have to be bigger than 0. And you solve your discriminant, find out what k is. K will always be, except for when it's equal to 0, will always have an inequality. Then in a part B like this, choose one value of k. You can pick anything that works. You don't want to, like I said, k has to be bigger than 49 over 8. If you're like, I don't want to do too much mental math, I'm going to pick 1 billion, because I'm hoping that's big enough, you'll probably be right. Good. Not a bad strategy. Right? Like 8, would 7 work?
Yeah.
Would 6 work? No. It's like 7 is like living there, like right on the edge. You like to take risks in your life. You want to be as close to possible as not working, right? Technically, what is this? 6.125. So you say, I'm going to make my 6.12501, and you're fine. That would be okay. That's really living on the edge, really, really close to not working, but just barely. It would just barely be negative and just barely not work. So you have different options there for k. Okay. Circle 8, 9, and 10, and right underneath question number 3, we'll put an X through it. We're going to skip that one today.